Hey there, welcome back to another video. This time around, it is my review of the 1993 cult classic Super Mario Brothers. This ain't no game. Now, this is honestly one of my favorites. I know for some people that's kind of shocking because this movie has gotten a lot of bad reviews. It got a lot of bad reviews when it came out. It was a flop in the box office in 1993. It's a movie that is considered to be not only one of the worst video game movies for a lot of people, but also one of the worst films in general. But I gotta be honest, I really love this movie. Despite its flaws, despite its warts, despite its issues, I really enjoy this film. I enjoyed it immensely when I was a kid, even as a fan of the video games, and I still enjoy it to this day. It's such a weird, surreal, crazy, wild blast of a movie. Even if you're not a fan of the film, and I know there's a lot of people who aren't, you have to admit that it's something else. It's something creative. It's not like most movies, and it's definitely a unique experience. Now, the film is directed by the duo of Rocky Morton and Annabel Jankel, and these two were behind Max Headroom, the character as well as the short-lived TV series, and they're two really creative minds, but they didn't have a whole lot of experience directing a feature film, and that definitely did show here when it comes to working with the personalities of the various different cast members and just kind of keeping things together. But despite all of that, despite their relative lack of experience when it comes to directing a feature film, working with a considerable budget, working with a lot of other extra constraints in terms of Disney, who took over, like, I think it was like a couple weeks before production and shooting eventually started, and changing things and changing the tone and shifting things around last minute. Despite all of this happening, and despite all of the odds against them, and despite them even threatening to quit the production at one point, they banded together, got the job done, and what they were able to get on the screen is honestly impressive, considering all of the constraints and all of the problems with the production. I mean, you got your two leads who are getting intoxicated and drunk in between takes. You've got your actor, one of the biggest stars, and Dennis Hopper, who's playing Koopa, just hating your guts, not wanting to work with you, being disagreeable, thinking that you're complete and utter trash when it comes to filmmaking, or you're just out of your league. And you have to deal with all of these practical effects, all of this complicated stuff with the sets and the art direction and production design, and all of these expectations that are on your shoulders. And lesser people, lesser directors might have crumbled. They might have crumbled under the weight and buckled entirely. But Rocky Morton and Annabel Jankel, they took the weight on their shoulders and carried the film to its completion. And for that, I think they deserve a lot of credit. And also, they deserve credit, period, because it's a nice looking film. It's got a good looking style to it. It's got some nice flair. I think the way that they shot Dino Hatton in particular was epic and grand and really made the film feel like this big event, this big spectacle. The action sequences when they are there, like the car chase with the police cars, and the sequence in the pipes with the mattress, and a few other sequences, and the climax. They are shot in ways that are exciting, that really do emphasize the action or the movement of the Mario Brothers or Koopa or other people in the frame. And there's some nice mix of different sort of camera angles at times, different camera techniques. For a relatively inexperienced duo of filmmakers, they did a they did a good job. They made a nice looking film that has some really great looking shots. They also utilized the lighting well. They shot the practical effects like the Yoshi puppet and the Goombas in ways where they didn't look completely totally fake. So I think that considering the circumstances, Rocky and Annabelle, they they won. They got a high score. The script by Parker Bennett, Terry Runte, and Ed Solomon. This screenplay is where probably the majority of the film's flaws lie, and a lot of it just has to do with tonal inconsistency, but a lot of that's not the writer's fault. See, I see a lot of people when they review this movie, they don't really understand that a lot of the tonal inconsistencies are not the fault of Rocky Morton or Annabel Jankel. It's not even the fault of the screenwriters. It's the fault of Disney. Disney came in and they took over the production with Hollywood Pictures, I believe, like a couple weeks before they were going to start shooting. And so a lot of the people involved had to just change things on the fly last minute because can't have the edgy, dark stuff that was originally in the first draft of the screenplay. Can't have that. It's too much. Disney is not going to accept that because this needs to be for 8-year-olds. And it just leads to a lot of stuff just being wildly uneven when it comes to the tone of the film, because the tone of the film was completely different. Before they started shooting, it was much darker. It was much more adult in tone. It was much closer to like the 1990 Ninja Turtles movie than it was Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles 2, Secret of the Ooze, that kind of thing. And it's just one of those deals where I'm not really going to be too harsh on the script because of the circumstances. But also, I think the script has some moments of genuine brilliance. I think the idea of making a alternate universe where instead of it being humans who evolved from mammals, it's dinosaurs. That's creative. That's intriguing. I like the idea of parallel dimensions and these different portals. I love Dino Hatton. I think it's a great setting, and it has its own character to it, to the point where it feels like it is its own character in the film, because it does. It has its own personality. And I like the darker tone. I like the bits of dark comedy that are thrown in there. It reminds me of stuff like Hudson Hawk or Bill and Ted's Bogus Journey or the 1995 Judge Dredd movie. The kind of movies that I know are pretty divisive among critics and a lot of other people, but the kind of movies that I really liked because of the creativity and the imagination that are present in those films. And I think Super Mario Brothers is one of those movies. It has some great moments of just wild imagination. And some of it doesn't work, but there's a lot of it that does. There's even some stuff that, like, as a kid, like the stuff with the cameras, the mug shots, I laughed just at the silly faces that they made. But as an adult, it's even funnier because Mario and Luigi think that they're being shot. They don't even think that they don't think that they're getting their photo taken. The reason why they're just terrified and they make these silly faces is because of the fact that they're scared shitless and they think they're going to get shot in the head. So there's just a lot of stuff like that throughout the film when it comes to the writing, which is honestly really clever and funny. I will say when it comes to the humor, the stuff with the duo of I think it's Iggy and Spike, that's where the humor is really not the best. Three Stooges kind of stuff, a slapstick. I didn't really find those two to be really that funny, so that wasn't really something that was that effective. But the silly, surreal, weird stuff like the Goombas dancing in the elevator, I I think that's hilarious. I crack up every time at that scene. And the various different moments with Koopa just being weird and just chewing the scenery and giving lines to chew the scenery with are fun and and enjoyable and entertaining to watch. I know it's dumb where he's going plumbers or he's going monkey, but like that, it's supposed to be over the top and silly. It's not meant to be taken seriously. So I actually think it just adds to the fun of the movie. And I like the fact that Mario and Luigi, they are actually plumbers. I think they did a good job with those two when it comes to their characters. I really like the dynamic between Mario and Luigi, how they really were close to one another, and I like the banter between the two of them. And I think they make a good duo, and I think the script did a good job giving Mario and Luigi a lot of moments for them to shine, a lot of moments for their characters to really feel more fleshed out compared to what's in the video game. And speaking of the video game, I actually think the script did a clever job inserting a lot of video game elements into the screenplay. You got the bomb, you got Big Bertha, you got the thwomp boots, which are essentially these jumping boots that Mario and Luigi use so they can jump real high, like in the game. There's even a scene where they both grab these cartons and they smash through the skylight as if they're smashing through blocks. There's a lot of creativity there. Toad, who gets turned into a Goomba. You've got Princess Daisy. Koopa, who's essentially Bowser, but they didn't really want to call him Bowser for some reason, but he's got the hair. He's got spiky hair. And, he's part lizard. Even stuff where people were shooting fireballs with these fireball guns. The scene with the mattress and the frozen pipes, that's like going through pipes. There's a lot of stuff in this script that throws in elements from the games in really clever, interesting, unique ways. And I think a lot of the criticism that this film gets is solely due to the script and the fact that it's not like the game. The tagline says, "This ain't no game. This isn't the game." And it could not have been the game. That's the other thing. I feel a lot of the criticisms against this film are overblown and in some instances completely totally unfair. You can't criticize this screenplay and say it sucks just because it's not exactly like the video games at the time. Here's why. It's a live action film. This is not a animated movie. This isn't an anime. This isn't a cartoon. This is a live action film. And what works in the video game or an animation doesn't necessarily work in live action. Let me paint a picture for you. Imagine if this movie starred Warwick Davis as Mario, and he's dressed up as the Mario from the games, and he's speaking in an Italian accent, and he's going, "Woohoo! It's me, a Mario!" and jumping around, and jumping on mushrooms, and kicking turtles in the face, and fighting a giant turtle who breathes fire, saving a princess, while he's in this just kaleidoscope, just crazy world with clouds with smiley faces and blocks everywhere. You'd be like, what the fuck is this fever dream? And can I please get out of this? I know for some people that might work, but for a lot of people that would be a train wreck of epic proportions, and it would be incredibly difficult, if not impossible, to take seriously. So I don't understand. I don't understand why a lot of the criticism is that it's not like the game. It's not like the game because it's live action. What are you expecting? You get the Mario Brothers, and they go into an alternate dimension, and they try to save the princess. Also, a lot of criticisms I see are about like the plot, and how it's not like the plot of the games. What plot? The plot is just saving the princess. At least from the first three games, it's not like there was a lot of lore or a lot of stuff that they could go off of. Don't bring up some comics in Game Pro or not Game Pro, Nintendo Power, or some obscure ass comics that only a very few amount of people read at the time, let alone remember. That doesn't count to me. Well, neither does the manga or whatever else I've heard that people have tried to throw out there as potential things that they could use. Most people were not aware of those things. So what they had to do was start from scratch. They had to create something that was inspired by the games, that was completely unique, that had its own unique world, and threw these characters in. And considering all of the constraints, and considering the circumstances, what they did, I think is pretty damn good. Considering the amount of creativity you have here, the amount of imagination, the fact that they do throw in video game references. I mean, hell, the de-evolution guns are super scopes. They're super scopes for the Super Nintendo. So yeah, I don't get it. I don't understand the criticism for this movie when it comes to it not being like the game. That's a weak criticism to me. It's always been a weak criticism to me. If you don't like the film because of the tone, you think the plot is lacking, which I've seen people talk about, but I'm like, it's just about saving the princess. Just because the plot's simple and it's about trying to save the princess or stop the two worlds from merging, that doesn't necessarily mean that it has no plot. I think there was still enough of a driving plot going on and enough of a conflict that it worked. It was simple, but that doesn't mean that it was non-existent. And if that's not enough for you, if you think it's flimsy, if you think it doesn't hold water, that's fine. But if you think this film sucks just because it's not like the video game, I'm sorry. I think that's just a really weak argument that's lacking context when it comes to what they were working with at the time in 1993. I mean, even have Yoshi in this, and I think the way that they had Yoshi in this was cool. And I like the idea of the meteorite piece and the whole concept of trying to prevent Dino Hatton or the nightmarish world of Koopa from merging with our own. I actually think that's cool. That's fresh. That's innovative. And I think there's just a lot of stuff that's just really creative and fun. Even the stuff with Big Bertha I like, the dance club scene. And when it comes to action, when it's there, I mean, it's not really an action movie, but when you get the action, it's exciting. It's thrilling to watch. The car chase in particular with the explosions and everything, and it's also a movie that delivers on that front. So yeah, the humor's kind of a mixed bag. Some of the stuff involving some of the plot points, some of the characters is kind of flimsy. But for what it is, I think it's actually a pretty dang good script. I really do. I even like what they do with Daisy, especially the relationship between Daisy and Luigi. I love what they do with Luigi. For once, Luigi is actually cool, and he seems like an equal to Mario instead of below Mario like he has been in so many other video games and other stories. And it's got a good villain. I even like the stuff with Fiona Shaw's character Lena. I like the whole back and forth between her and Koopa, and how she wants the power over him, and how she's trying to go behind his back. I like how they incorporate the fungus, which I thought was really cool and interesting and creative. And I know I've repeated the same kind of terms numerous times, but they really do fit this film. They really do. Like, trust the fungus, and then how the fungus is trying to speak to Mario and Luigi, and how it saves them at some points. I thought that was definitely some good writing as well. And yeah, considering the fact that a lot of these writers had to work around the clock or just rewrite stuff on the fly, what they did is pretty impressive considering what they were up against. And I like the cast. I know originally Dustin Hoffman of all people was really trying to get the role of Mario, which that would have been something else, but I mean, I don't know. He might have pulled it off. He's a good actor, but they just decided, nah, we don't think he's going to be right for it. So they went for Bob Hoskins. I know Danny DeVito was initially courted before that, but he turned it down. And they decided to go with Bob and John to play Mario and Luigi. And I know for Koopa, they were thinking about Michael Keaton or Arnold Schwarzenegger, but both of them declined the role. So they decided to give the role to Dennis Hopper. And you had Samantha Mathis that was brought in as Princess Daisy. And so what I really like about this cast is that, yeah, I know the stories. I know the horror stories when it comes to them working on this film and how they hated working on it and so on and so forth. At least some of them hated working on it. And I get Bob Hoskins' problems. I mean, Bob Hoskins' problems. I get his issues. The man broke his arm shooting this movie. I think his arm got stuck in like a door or something of a car, broke his arm. There's certain shots in this movie where his arm is in a cast. I get it. I wouldn't be too happy with the shoot either if I broke an arm. But despite that, he was a trooper. He was a real professional, and I don't think it really affected his performance that much. And I know the rumors are that Bob and John Leguizamo, they got lubricated and liquored up in between takes, but that doesn't show on the screen either. It doesn't seem like they're drunk. It doesn't seem like they're just going through the motions. I actually think they do some legitimately good work here as Mario and Luigi. They have some good chemistry. They approach the absurd plot and craziness of the movie with a straight face sometimes, which makes some of the stuff even funnier. And at other times, they know when to handle it in a tongue-in-cheek fashion. And I thought they had good chemistry. I thought that they were brothers, or at least they were kind of a father and son sort of dynamic. Dennis Hopper is a great villain. He's intimidating, as well as a lot of fun to watch as the scenery chewing Koopa. Samantha Mathis, I really thought did a good job too as Princess Daisy. I really like her performance in this. It's honestly one of my favorite roles from her. I think the scenes with her and John Leguizamo, I think they're really sweet. Like I really did buy that the two of them were falling for one another, and I felt like the love that they had for one another was actually genuine. And it really did raise the stakes in terms of wanting to see her get rescued by Luigi and Mario. Fisher Stevens and Richard Edson as Iggy and Spike, fine for what they were asked to do, but I can honestly take or leave those characters. Fiona Shaw, I liked her performance as Lena. Yeah, it's over the top, but this entire movie is over the top, so it's fitting. And I thought she had some moments of menace that were effective. And Mojo Nixon, I liked him as Toad, singing that anti-Koopa song, and I thought he was fun. I even liked Dana Kaminsky as Daniela, Mario's girlfriend. We have Lance Henriksen, who is a very, very small role, like a role that's like a blip on the screen as the king. So he is essentially the fungus. You have well, I definitely want to mention Francesca P. Roberts as Big Bertha. I really liked her performance as that character. And yeah, Dan Castellaneta, who, he's been in The Simpsons, a bunch of other stuff. He played the narrator in the beginning. Frank Welker, he voices Yoshi and various different Goombas. So yeah, I think it's a good cast. I really do. I think when it comes to the actors who play Mario and Luigi, I think they did a good job. I think Dennis Hopper is a lot of fun as the bad guy, kind of similar to his performance in Waterworld. And Samantha Mathis was a good Princess Daisy. So yeah, I think it's got a good cast who, despite the craziness of the production, I think they still deliver some good performances. I don't think they did a bad job. I really don't. I think they gave it their all despite everything that was just threatening to swallow them whole when it comes to this production. And I think it's got some great cinematography by Dean Semler. I mean, Dean Semler is a guy who has worked on a ton of movies, a ton of classic films. I mean, he was a cinematographer of Dances with Wolves. He did the cinematography for Last Action Hero. He did the cinematography for Young Guns, Mad Max Beyond Thunderdome, Mad Max 2, The Road Warrior. So he's a very capable, very good, high quality cinematographer. And this one was no exception. There's some really great looking shots in this. I think he worked well with the two directors. The editing by Mark Goldblatt, I also thought was magnificent, especially when it comes to a lot of the stuff involving visual effects and explosions and all kinds of other carnage and fungus and bombs. And the score by Alan Silvestri is one of my favorites from him. I think it's one of his best scores. It's definitely one of his most underrated. So yeah, I really like the music for the film when it comes to the score. The Super Mario Brothers theme is in the beginning of the movie and it's incorporated throughout the movie at certain points, but it's not like a main thing. Silvestri just kind of made his own score to fit the tone and the overall vibe of the movie, and I think that was the right choice. And I even like a lot of the songs that are on the soundtrack. I mean, you got Almost Unreal by Roxette. You've got Walk the Dinosaur by George Clinton and the Goombas, which is a really good bop. That one just makes me want to dance every time I hear it. Love is the Drug by Divinals. You've got Speed of Light by Joe Satriani that plays during the pipe scene, which I love. I love the way that scene is edited as well and shot. It's really fun to watch, and just the way that it's edited together with that bit of instrumental rock by Joe Satriani is really something special to me. And yeah, I think it's a good soundtrack as well, with a lot of good songs. And it goes by at a really quick pace, like a really fun, fast-paced playthrough of Super Mario Brothers. It doesn't get boring to me. Like, it's only 104 minutes, and every time I watch it, it just goes by super fast. Like I'm going through a warp zone or through a special secret pipe that transports me quickly to the next level. And it's definitely a film that has a considerable amount of money behind it, at least for the time. I think it's like near $40 million budget is definitely on the screen when it comes to the production design and the art direction and the costuming and the visual effects and the practical effects. I mean, the Yoshi puppet by Patrick Tatopoulos, butchered his last name, but I've always had a hard time saying his last name, to be perfectly honest. The makeup effects by him are really solid, just marvelous stuff when it comes to the makeup effects. Great looking Yoshi puppet. And there's just a lot of other stuff. Some CGI, some early CGI that for the time was way ahead of its time and actually holds up pretty well all of these years later, especially compared to some of the other films that used early CGI effects. And yeah, I mean, I just don't get it. I don't get the hate. I've never got the hate. I've always been a fan of this movie, and I always will. So I would say if you do like films like Hudson Hawk, Bogus Journey, the 1995 Judge Dredd movie, or like Johnny Mnemonic, or those kind of movies, or Tank Girl, you like that kind of film with that kind of vibe, I honestly would recommend this. I think you might definitely get some enjoyment out of it. And if you are a fan of the film, or you're just curious to see more info about it, I highly recommend checking out the website, the Super Mario Brothers Movie Archive. I'm gonna put a link to the website in the video description down below, because it's a really great and valuable resource for this film. There's even like a different cut of the movie on there that you can check out, as well as just a bunch of other different information about the behind the scenes, about the tumultuous production. You get to see other stuff from other fans of the movie, and little snippets or photos or bits of extra information about other things related to the film, like memorabilia and so on. So it's a really fun site, and I definitely do recommend checking it out if you are curious to learn more about this infamous video game movie. But anyway, I got nothing else to say about Super Mario Brothers except thanks for watching my review, and until next time, I'll see you later. See ya. Glug, 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 glug.